We've got our first set of sizable Zeri nerfs, while fighters like Aatrox and Set are buffed after falling hard from the 12.3 item changes. Welcome back everyone to the SkillCapped Tier List update for patch 12.4, where we give you guys the latest scoop on the solo queue meta thanks to the help of our challenger players and utilizing the most recent data. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. After a brief delay, it looks like Fire Light Echo will be hitting the Rift, along with a couple Shockblade themed skins for Kassadin, Shen, and Qiyana. The only item alteration for 12.4 will remove a good chunk of power from the roaming support top lane strategy. For those who have never had the pleasure of playing against the Janna top with Smite, the idea behind it is to perma-roam and act like a second jungler. To nerf the effectiveness of this strat, Riot will be cracking down on the farming penalty for support items, going from 4 to 2 minions per minute. CS bounties will now adjust based on the number of support items on each team. Objective bounty gold leads will be halved when 2 or more support items are present on one team. Lastly, objective bounty linger is going from 15 to 5 seconds. If only Riot could just implement a fix to where if you were assigned top lane, support starting items were disabled. Something that would completely nullify the strategy. These changes Riot decided to go with are a step in the right direction, but we're not super confident they will be enough to kill the strat. After all, Janna losing out on more gold from minions won't really reduce the potency of the strategy early on. Overall, if you actually want to improve as a top laner, we wouldn't recommend spending time on the Janna top with Smite, but to each their own. Moving on to the top lane changes, let's start with a compensation buff for Aatrox. Sterak's and Gore Drinker adjustments from 12.3 have been net negative for Aatrox, so Riot will be increasing his sweet spot damage amp from 50 to 60%. This is a great buff to reward experienced Aatrox players and gives much stronger all-in potential. Keep in mind, you can land sweet spot damage on all 3 Qs, so in total, this can be a 30% increase in damage if all 3 sweet spot Qs land. As a result of this buff, Aatrox's time in B tier is short-lived, as we'll be pushing him back into A for 12.4. Illaoi was another fighter who got hit extremely hard by the Sterak's changes, so a buff is in order. Base attack speed ratio is going from 0.571 to 0.625. Bit of an odd choice for a buff considering Illaoi is more of a spellcasting bruiser. On top of this, W max health damage is going from 2% per 100 AD up to 4% per 100 AD. This buff is quite solid, as Illaoi W is on less than a 2-second cooldown with ultimate triggered, so the extra damage will really add up in an extended fight. Overall, with how terrible of a spot Illaoi has been in throughout 12.3, we can't see these changes being enough to push her into a powerful position. Illaoi mains and one-tricks can make her work, but there are better top laners above her B tier standing. Set is the third bruiser top laner buffed for 12.4, with his health per level going from 93 to 100. Buff helps to lessen the blow of the health reduction nerf on Gore Drinker, but won't significantly increase Set's power level. Set remains an average B tier top laner. A base armor buff for Rumble is penciled in, going from 31 to 36. Top lane Rumble has struggled for months now in solo queue, so this buff will help him out in a lot of meta matchups. Rumble will jump up from C into B tier for this patch. Mundo has been dominating the lower elos as of recent, so Riot's hitting him with a few nerfs. AD per level is going from 4.2 down to 3.5. This means you'll be losing about a long sword worth of AD at level 14. Ultimate cooldown is nerfed later on, going from 110 scaling to 90 seconds to 110 seconds at all ranks. All in all, some nerfs to Mundo's scaling potency, which will force us to move him down into A tier. Quinn, Shen, and Garen are the all-around best top lane carries from the majority of elos. Even though Smite Janna may still be viable in 12.4, we've decided to remove it from the top lane tier list. Riot's made it clear they don't want the strategy to exist, so it's best to prioritize your time on other champs. Quinn and Shen are both incredibly strong top lane picks for the state of the meta, as they have the ability to smash lane and also impact the map pre-14 minutes. Most bruiser top lane picks are now performing much better with Death's Dance in place of Sterak's, especially in games where you're planning to side lane. Death's Dance is way more optimal. The 3 godlike picks for low elo include Garen, Mundo, and Nasus. Riven, Teemo, and Darius are all good ban options. Turns out the Amumu buffs were a little unnecessary last patch, so Riot's issuing a buff to compensate. E damage reduction is going from 2 scaling to 10 up to 5 scaling to 13. The Mummy moves back into A tier as a good jungle pickup. Nunu has been dominating the jungle meta all throughout Season 12, so a nerf is finally headed to live this patch. Q healing from champions will be lowered from 80 to 60%. Honestly, we were expecting a little more than this with how powerful Nunu has been. Continue snowballing your way around the map in 12.4 as Nunu will hold down his OP tier spot. With only 2 minor jungle adjustments, the tier list doesn't change a whole lot. As a result of the Nunu nerf, we'll be altering the OP tier. Prior to Q nerf, Nunu was a cut above everyone else, but we now see him on the same level as Diana and Ka moving forward. If you're still prioritizing Sterix over Death Stance on picks like Hecarim, Xin Zhao, and Vi, then look to make the swap. When ahead and snowballing, Death Stance is so much better now, as Sterix is more of a late game pickup after its changes. Top 3 junglers for low elo are Warwick, Trundle, and Nunu. A few good bans to consider include Nunu, Diana, and Hecarim. One of the bigger nerfs for 12.4 goes the way of Qiyana. Passive bonus AD ratio is going from 55 down to 40%. Nerf is definitely warranted as Qiyana has held the highest win rate for any mid laner in Diamond and above over the recent patches. Reason Qiyana hasn't been in the OP tier is due to our tier list being catered to what's best for Diamond and below, and Qiyana isn't as effective for the lower ranks. Qiyana will remain a godlike pick for the higher elos, but for the majority of ranks, she'll be placed in A tier. Veigar has skyrocketed in power over the past couple patches, so he'll be targeted with some nerfs. Base armor drops from 23 down to 21. Armor per level is buffed from 3.75 to 4. E cooldown will be increased from 18 scaling to 12 seconds to 20 scaling to 12 seconds. Overall, it's a nerf to Veigar's early game without touching his late game scaling. You'll feel this nerf more so in the higher elos, but for the majority of ranks, Veigar won't become significantly weaker. Veig will continue to hold down his S tier standing for 12.4. Not gonna lie, kinda forgot this champion even existed, but we have a couple buffs for Neeko lined up. Hitbox size is being lowered from 80 to 65. Q additional pop damage is going from 40 scaling to 120 up to 40 scaling to 140. W cooldown is lowered from 20 scaling to 16 down to 16 scaling to 12 seconds. W buff is the really interesting one, as 4 seconds off will allow for more aggression early in lane. We wouldn't be surprised if top lane Neeko actually benefits more from this change than mid with how the meta is aligned. Nevertheless, mid lane Neeko will see a decent power boost and be moving into A tier. Mid lane tier list will feature Ahri as the lone OP pick of the patch. Ahri is simply a cut above the rest of the competition after her 12.3 mini rework and is much deserving of her high standing. It's not that Fizz and Victor have become any weaker as they move into S tier with how strong Ahri is. Watch out for Rumble mid this patch as the armor buff will make him a great counter against AD assassins. A bit surprised there's no follow-up on Twisted Fate after his 12.3 nerf as he's struggling mightily down in C tier. Veigar, Malz, and Annie are all amazing picks to climb low elo the fastest. Victor, Ahri, and Kassadin are 3 of the best bans. A pretty interesting buff is lined up for Ashe, as her ultimate missile speed is going from 1600 to 1500 plus 200 per second. Max speed will now be 2100. How impactful will this change actually be though? If you're in lane and right up close to the enemy when ulting, you won't notice the change at all. It's only the cross-map ult plays that will become a little more potent. We don't really expect this buff to have a considerable effect on Ashe's power level, so she'll remain in A tier. Lucian Q will receive a small mana buff going from 50 scaling to 90 down to 48 scaling to 80. 10 mana off at max rank is a pretty mediocre buff considering Lucian himself isn't in the best spot for solo queue. Like the Ashe change, we don't expect this one to significantly increase Lucian's power, so he'll hold down his B tier spot. Minor ADC buffs seem to be the theme for 12.4 as Kalista base armor is going from 21 to 24. Each point of armor is worth about 20 gold, so you're getting 60 gold worth of stats for free now. As an early game reliant ADC, any buff to increase Kalista's lane dominance is welcomed. We'll be moving Kalista out of C tier and into B as a result of this change. The 4th AD buff this patch is Xayah, as her E crit damage multiplier is going from 0.5 to 0.75% per 1% crit chance. This buff is being issued to put more priority back on auto-focused crit build instead of lethality. Crit is actually performing on the same level as lethality before this buff, so we expect crit to take over now in 12.4. Xayah will be a good A tier ADC pickup. It's safe to say Zeri has turned out a little broken after her release, so a bunch of nerfs are headed her way in 12.4. Q uncharged right-click damage is going from 15 scaling to 40 down to 10 scaling to 25. Uncharged right-click low health multiplier is changed from 4 to 6. Right-click slow duration drops from 1.5 to 1 second. Slow amount is altered as well, going from 20 scaling to 40 to 14 scaling to 50. Q base damage drops from 10 scaling to 30 to 9 scaling to 25. Q base damage can now crit, while Q excess attack speed to AD conversion is going from 50 to 60%. W cooldown is changed from 10 at all ranks to 13, scaling to 9 seconds. E cooldown is increased at the later ranks. E cooldown reduction per champion hit drops from 1.5 to 1 second. Lastly, R attack speed is lowered from 30, scaling to 40, down to 30%. Lots to digest here, but our overall outlook on Zeri for 12.4 has her remaining a strong marksman, just losing her OP tier standing. Zeri will find a spot in S tier. Some familiar faces show back up in the OP tier for 12.4 as Jhin and Jinx will be swapping spots with Zeri and Veigar. Vayne is the third OP ADC as she has been for most of Season 12. Scaling is really the name of the game down in bot lane right now. Jinx, Vayne, Cog, Twitch, these champions who can pop off on a couple items with a broken enchanter by their side are very powerful picks. Definitely continue to abuse Veigar as a pocket pick in games where your team lacks AP, as the nerfs aren't enough to push him far down the tier list. Best bot lane carries to climb low elo the fastest are Veigar, MF, and Ziggs. Best bans of the patch include Vayne, Zeri, and Jinx. Interesting to see Nami buffed right back up after her recent 12.3 nerf. The E-Magic damage nerf is actually being completely reverted. As a result, Nami will move back into a strong S tier standing for 12.4. Blitz has been in our OP tier for ages now, and Riot's finally hitting him with a nerf. A pretty light one though, as health regen is going from 8.5 to 7.5. More of a placebo nerf than anything, as Blitz will keep a lock on his OP tier position. For the complete support tier list, we have Senna, Janna, Blitz, and Soraka as the highest priority carries. With just 2 very small support changes for this patch, the meta is looking exactly as to where it was in 12.3. Enchanters continue to reign supreme, while Blitz is a great pickup if you enjoy a more aggressive style of play. Even after 12.3 hotfix nerfs, Janna remains a very strong support pick for the time being. Soraka, Senna, and Zyra are all exceptional low elo pickups, while Senna, Blitz, and Janna are great value bans for the meta. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank-up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.